Okay, now last week you saw part one of our masterclass on evaluating the Proto-Thesis of Bahrain and the early alphabetic inscriptions. That ended up being 6 hours of material. So what we're going to do is we edited the last one about 2 hours in. We're going to pick up where we left off here, give you a part two, and then next week we are going to give you part three. We hope you enjoy part two of this masterclass on ancient Egypt and the Bible. All right, our next text here is Sinai 358. Let's see, does Sass have anything to say about 358? Now, interestingly enough, version 63 is Rainey's version of this, but Sass added some modifications to it, and then that's the way you should be doing this. If you're going to modify someone's work, you have to note you've modified this. So 63 is going to be the magic one here. 63, or there's 63. Okay, so 63 in the corner here is how Benjamin Sass is going to be reading this. Okay, and we don't get a lot of, let's see here. He's got a line across the bottom, a meme, a lamed, a kaf, and another kaf. He's got Boutines from 1932, Albrights from 1969, and Morensis. Now, his reading here is somewhat strange again. He's got 3 registers. Register 1, he's got an aleph, goes to a lamed. None of the epigraphers seem to agree with that lamed. He's got a dalet. The dalet's fine. He's got a second dalet. No one seems to agree with. In fact, Sass thinks that's a Zion. He's got an ayin. Everyone seems fine with the ayin. Everyone seems fine with the lamed. And then for register 2 along the bottom, he's got a meme, a lamed, a kaf, and then off screen over here, he's got a second kaf. And then register 3. Is he going to double read that? Yes, he is. So he's going to reread that aleph for register 3. Going to go from here and do an L shape. So he's reading it from here to there and down. He's got an aleph again, using the recycling that aleph. Got a noon, a hey, a sade, right? And that's his. Where's he at? Go with this. Sade lamed. Where's register 3? Okay. Aleph, noon, hey, sade, and he curls back. Goes the lamed, and then this. So he's doing this C-shaped reading. Really strange. This is really strange. So aleph, noon, hey. So he recycles the aleph, noon, hey, sade, recycles the lamed, recycles the meme. Okay, this reading's bizarre. Okay, let's see. Sinai 358. 358. Okay. I think we have this one in RTI, we do. Okay, RTI imaging it. All right. Right. 358. All right. Take down SAS and hold on for just a moment. We'll pull up our RTI viewer. One. Okay. Okay. There we go. We got the RTI viewer. Okay. And we're doing an RTI view here of the squeeze. Okay. So this is a squeeze that has been scanned in. Now, that again is perfectly acceptable. Squeezes are very, very good at capturing all the detail. Turn on the specular enhancement. And let's, first of all, let's try to get some deal here on what's going on. All right, this is pretty hard to read. Just going to say that. Do a swipe around here, see if we can find it. Okay. And we'll pull up Ron here. See if it sort of measures the way it should. See clearly. And not. Okay, see the fish? Fish is fine. For context here, this is that fish in register 1. There's the fish in register 1. Aleph would have to be up here. There's that groove that's debated here. There's that ion. There's that lamed. No problem with the lamed. No problem with that meme. No problem with that second lamed. Okay. The sade is there. That's fine. The hay could be, but it's really difficult to see. I'm not seeing the hay. So half of this image we can. Okay, there's the sade. Found the sade right there. There's the sade. There's the lamed. And the hay would then have to be up here somewhere off the image side of the image. So the RTI image is not going to tell us, say, the most controversial portions of this. But we also have some other images too. So let's pull those up. There it is. Okay, well, we have essentially the context image here. There we go. There it is. There's the context. There's the image in C2. So there we have it in C2. And here in this image here, you can clearly see the aleph right there. No problem. Okay, so we've identified the aleph, no problem. Clear in the original context image. The fish, the dalet is clear in the context image. That second dalet that he's proposing here, not clear. Not clear. I don't see it. Honestly, I don't see it. It's really small for it to be a dalet. I don't think you can make a case here that that's a dalet. It's clear from the original image, from the archaeological image, that there's no inscription of a tail there, or that this has been rubbed out in any way. So his idea here that this has been rubbed out, I think, is nonsense. The ion, yes, that's there. Lamed, name, ion, sade. Now the other two images. There might have been a cough right there. The second cough, that's a problem. Pull that up. You can see that. Okay. That is this cough here, supposedly off the edge here, is this part of the stone right here. You'll notice it is deeply recessed. It's deeply, deeply recessed. The idea that you can get a cough out of that, I don't think that makes any sense at all. Yeah, I'm not seeing this. I think he made that one up. I don't think anyone would agree with him on this either. It's just no one would carve a cough into a deep, deep recess like that in the stone. It doesn't make any sense. And his translation here, given that we've got this boustrophodon monstrosity happening here, El de Elam, O hidden God, your kingdom, please save them. Yeah, he really cannot get this. He really can't get this. I mean, okay. O hidden God, your king, maybe. Maybe. But the please save them. The Hatslim. No, that's garbage. And that's not going to work. That's epigraphically not going to work. So, yeah, essentially he can't get this reading without taking a trip to Crazy Town. So, this is the sort of reading that you would find Gershon Galil do. And I don't think this is a credible reading. Okay, next one. And here is Sinai 357. This is his most controversial one. Now, I'll pull this up. And it's controversial for a couple reasons, but we'll get into those. This is his first Moses reading. That's what it's probably most controversial for, but it's not a given reading anyway. Okay. So that is this is his first reference to SAS. Let's compare what SAS actually showed here, because it kind of gives you the idea here that this is all from SAS, and it's not. The drawing is from SAS, probably. Look this up here just to make sure. On the left-hand side is the actual drawing by SAS. That's the actual drawing. On the right is Baron's basically modification of it and his interpretation of what SAS here has rendered. Now, you'll notice here some interesting differences between the two. If we just look at just the comparative epigraphy aspect of this, okay? Like, for example, here, you go down to this kaf here. SAS puts in there a question mark. He doesn't know what that is. Baron has changed SAS's data here to show it as a cough. That's not what SAS is saying. SAS is saying he doesn't know. That's what a question mark means here. He doesn't know. But SAS also shows a couple of extra marks that are around here. Okay? Including the two side marks and the tate that later on Baron here is going to leverage off of. So there is some small warrant for some of his Moses inscription here, but not much. And we'll see exactly what we get into here in a moment. Okay, so that's the comparative epigraphy there. But we then get to his reading. Okay. And this is sort of where things go off the rails. There's some issues with this reading, and again, his color coding here is not helping things. Because, for example, his reading here in the pink, that is Zot M. Moshe reading here. This is from Moses. Okay. And he has basically a blow up of that. And again, this is where he does this. Now, there are some issues here just with his prima facie epigraphy. Go down, say, the vertical register. Character 8 is uncertain, but he's going to claim that's a cough. But we're going to focus here just for a moment. There's also some issue here, too, as to whether character... I think it's character 4. There's a problem with one of those alepphs at the bottom, too. See if I can pull this up here. Yeah, glyph 4 is an issue. Some think that this is a cow-headed aleph, but it's not as your standard cow-headed aleph, and we're going to see when we get to the RTI imaging. So let's go to the RTI imaging. We will start with the horizontal. We'll start with the horizontal here. Okay, there we go. Horizontal. Turn on our specular enhancement and the bottom register here. One of the things you'll notice one thing here is in, say, early in Bahrain's thing, he tries to say that this is the guy in here and this is the guy in right here. He tries to say that this is a sheen because it's rounded at the top. You'll notice this is not rounded at the top. It's a pointy triangle with 2 sidebars on it. Two lines that stick out the sides. This is clearly not a sheen. It is definitely a Gaian. Okay? So that's an issue here. Now, this is that glyph number 4. And there is something really hinky about this. Which is, this doesn't have actually horns. It has antlers. Now, I'm going to give a guy that I don't normally give his due. All right? Petrovich identified this as antlers, not horns. And he is absolutely correct. This is not horns. And that is not an aleph. Okay? What we're actually looking at here is a ligature. We're looking here at a ligature. It's a ligature of, I'm going to try to point this out very carefully here. You've got a cough. Cough here goes down to there. And a noon. It's actually 2 characters written close together. But when people look at this, they see they read this as a line jumping across here and thinking it's a head that's connected. It's not connected. That line between horn 1 and horn 2 isn't connected there. There's nothing there. And you can see in the RTI imagery, it's flat. So this is not an aleph. This is a kaf and a noon written close together. We would call this a ligature even though they're not really connected, but that's what's happening here. is two very similar, very closely written characters that appear to the casual observer as being one character. That Aleph had in line in number 4, when it's really not. It's really two characters. Okay, but it takes a really, really keen observer, and as well as focused attention upon those RTI images to see that the two are not connected. And there's no way you can shine that light to get them connected. So yeah, it's not one character, it's two. So that's the those are the two major problems with that bottom register. Okay. Now let's go to the vertical one. Okay. Okay. And announcements again. Now, most of this is okay. There's that noon here from character 9. His cough is supposed to be in here. There's the fish. There's the Dalit from character 7. But I'm not seeing anything in here that could possibly be a cough. Not seeing it. And in fact, I'd say there's pretty much nothing there, except maybe surface scratches. Or it's been worn away. That's the other alternative too. It's been worn away and we just don't see it. Likewise, we go to the bottom of the inscription here. That final cough, I think, is probably debatable too. Yeah, I see the bait there. There's the bait. There could be a meme in there. There's a wrinkle in the squeeze that's does not seem to be resolved. That's probably the noon here. But I don't see evidence of that final cough. But that could be a problem with the squeeze, so we won't hold that against him. Now, up here is a whole different matter. Is Zoot and Moshe. Now, there is some evidence that there is a Zion right there. But they're really small strokes. It's possible it is a Zion. See stroke 1 there, stroke 2 there. Pull this up further here. This, however, is kind of odd. This is the Tate, and it's not a complete Tate. But there's enough of it there that I think you could state that it's a Tate. The problem is going to come with the two names. I am not seeing any evidence of either meme. Okay, there's the bait. There's the second bait. It's supposed to be right here, and the sheen's supposed to be right there. Sorry, right down there. There's no continuation of the sheen. If that's supposed to be the sheen, this is supposed to be the second meme. I don't see it. I just don't see it. And I don't think there's anything there. Even if we go into the default here and just take a little gander, we can kind of see this is a chunk out of the rock. You can see this chunk out of the rock. We can actually see that these two chunks are sort of connected. You can see the chunk there. You can see the chunk there. But that's not attached to anything. That's supposed to be connected to a sheen. I don't see it. This one here is supposed to be connected to a maim. I don't see that either. That's problematic. It's deeply problematic. And yes, this is a squeeze. You can see the fabric of the squeeze here. But that's what we're working with. But if a maim or sheen was there, we should see it. We should definitely see it. And instead, we get flat. So I think this is something that he just sort of made up. And I don't think he's got good warrant for this epigraphic reading. And I don't think he's got the corroborating epigraphy to justify it. This comes under what we would call pareidolia or speculation, but it's not really there. Okay, next one. Well, let's just take a look at again his translation. I root out and oppressed. The low, by the way, is not quite there. I root out an oppressed garden. Who is for the Father in regards to your manna? Doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. This is from Moses. Hearken, says Arba. Who's Arba? Why should we care? Look, this whole idea. I root out an oppressed garden. Who is for the Father in regards to your manna? Whose manna? Okay, we gotta understand something about Serbit el-Khadim. They're not going to be near the savannah. Okay? Now, at the time of the Exodus, a large portion of the Sinai was savannah. This is where they got the savannah was where the workers at Serbit el-Khadim got the trees to do the smelting of the copper. But mana was probably not a thing at Serbit el-Khadim. Two desert. All right, let's move on to the next one. Oh yeah, there's his justification. We did note here is that the Gaian is much more pointed than he makes out. A lot more. And I'll pull that up just again to show you for comparison. Because comparative epigraphy is a good thing. There's that Gaian. You'll notice here, it looks nothing like his Gaian sheen. Okay? It's not even constructed in the same way. This is wishful thinking. All right. So we move on now to the next inscription. All right. Again, I'm not going to get into Sinai 346. He's probably correct on this one. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt because these Sphinx inscriptions are basically all given to Balat or Hathor, and nobody really contests that. All right. We are now on to Sinai 359, on number 11 out of 22. Now, we see here 359. This is Morence's epigraphy of it. Let's pull up SAS. 65 and 66. And SAS here just references Boutin here. And that's really not that surprising, because it's not that complicated of an inscription. But, in characteristic Baron fashion here, he adds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different characters that no other epigrapher does. So, let's see if those bear out. See if those covenant bear out. All right, so he's got a weird reading again. Very strange reading. 2 registers that go from register 1 here, where he has a aleph, a kaus, a lamed. He starts with a lamed that sort of sits above the kaus head, and nobody agrees with that, by the way. I haven't found an epigrapher so far that puts a lamed on top of the kaus head, aleph. So he should have marked that in gray, and he didn't. Okay. He marks the meme beside it in gray and the hey in gray. So he's reading this lamed, meme, aleph, hey, bait. And then for register 2 here, he's reading this bait, ayin, lamed, tav. Okay? So for beloved Balot, it's supposed to be what this says. Let's bring up the RTI imaging. There we go. That's looking a lot better. All right. All right, so turn on our specular enhancement. Around a bit. All right, right off the gate, we see the aleph right there. Okay, there's no controversy there about the aleph. Now, what he's trying to do here, he's trying to read an extra character here by this bridge under the aleph that supposedly curls up. I don't see that curl up. If you just move the reflection just slightly, his idea that there's a curl up there just disappears. Shouldn't just disappear with like that if there's something there. So there's definitely an aleph there. I don't see a meme. Well, let's turn off that in for a moment and let's see if there's just with the plain photography imaging here. Yeah, I'm not seeing that first lamed. Yeah, please share in the comments if you think there's a lamed there between those horns. I'm not seeing it. I am just not seeing it. I do see the bait. The bait's there. Absolutely, the bait's there. That's it. That's the only 2 glyphs I see. Let's look at the comparative epigraphy. I'm gonna look at Boutin again here. I'm up with. He thinks there's a noon underneath the Boutin thinks there's a noon underneath. Okay, I see the noon. I see the noon there. Not very clear, but yeah, it's there-ish. It's there-ish. I wouldn't want to hang my hat on that noon though. The only 2 I can really see clear. Let's turn on the specular again. Okay, now I can see it. Now I can see the noon. You can see actually very clearly here. It goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Yeah, the noon's there. So we absolutely have a aleph, we have a bait, and we got a noon. Interestingly enough, Bahran does not include the noon. Or not the noon, sorry, that's not a noon, that's a meme. A meme. So there's an aleph, a bait, and a meme. So absolutely there's a meme there. And again, I'll point it out. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then there you've got the bait there. And then up there, you've got a ox head aleph. Those are the three characters I can see for sure. I do not see the Baron's Lamed. I do not see. I'll look here for his register, second register. If that second noon is there, that second name is there, it should be right across here. I am not seeing it. There does seem to be original stone, but that doesn't seem to be an incision. That seems to be something that's standing out from the stone. So that's probably not a meme. The hay, there could be a hay right in here. Back to the default here, see if I can see it by that. No, I think that's probably just a scratch in the stone, because you can see the shadows here of the letters pretty clearly. The noon's the mame's very difficult to see down there, but it is there. I can still see it. Yeah, the rest of his letters, I don't see at all. Yeah, I don't see that bait. I don't see that iron. I don't see that other inscription. That Lamed, and evidence of a Tate there. All. There's no evidence of a Tate there. I don't see it. The RTI imaging is not confirming his reading here. So I think this is, he's got an and an M. Abim. That's what we got here. And he doesn't even recognize the first name. So I think this is sloppy epigraphy. This is sloppy epigraphy where he hasn't used the tools effectively. All right, let's go on to the next inscription. Sinai 374. I do not think I have an image for 374. I don't have any images for 374. But what we see here is Albright's inscription here. Does Sass have anything to say on 374? Okay, he includes the readings of Albright, Boutin, and Leibovich. 83, 84, and 85. Sass again. So 83, 84, and 85. So really only one transcriptional photo there, or drawing. 83 is whose again? Albright's? Yeah, that's Albright's. Okay, so we can see here from Sass's copy of Albright, it's not too, he doesn't add a lot here to this. Now, we can see here that Baron has added a lot to this. Again, this isn't going to be impossible to figure out without getting good images or RTI imaging, which we don't have, unfortunately. But he's at least added a Tav, an Aleph, a Dalet that all overlap, another Aleph, a Hey, and then there's maybe an Aleph at the end, and maybe a Nun. But I don't see any of those. But it's going to be impossible, really, to verify that. best we could probably do is look at Albright's photo here. And it looks pretty smooth. This inscription probably has a very shallow inscriptional depth. So, at least at that portion. So, you probably have to look at the original stone. I don't have access to it here, so. Oh, by the way, you can get a lot of these images off of Inscriptifact, which is the University of Southern California early alphabetic inscription repository. This is where almost all the early alphabetic inscription epigraphers go to get their images. Okay? So, Inscriptifact, it's a great resource. It's where I get all my RTI images, at least most of them. And it's the go-to resource for epigraphers of the early alphabetic inscription. Okay, so let's move on here to the next reading. Now, I'll say this about the whole thing. He's got register 1, then register 2. He's got a third register, that's fine. That fourth register goes off at a weird angle. That please save them. So register 1, hidden god, your king, ETN Zot. Okay. Miss Webbalat. So it goes down to here, jumps over to 2, goes down. And then he has that Ada Haslam, please save them in this orientation, going sideways, diagonally down register 4. I think he made this up. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't be certain because I haven't seen the original stone. I haven't seen the high res photographs or RTI imaging. But it's this Ada Haslam is something he seems to, Baran seems to repeat a lot in his paradoliized readings. It's kind of like Gershon Galil always finds Arar in every inscription he reads. We seem to find Ada Haslam in every inscription that Baran reads. And it's always associated with these dubious readings. So I'm not going to give this one the benefit of the doubt. It looks too hinky. It looks too weird. It's got overlapping glyphs. I mean, there's clearly enough space here to write it properly. I don't get it. It just seems hinky. Okay. Sinai 349. Okay, what does SAS say about Sinai 349? Okay, yeah, we got some here. 27, 28. Okay, so we got some sketches here from Albright and Grime. So we got Albright's there. And then we got Grime's below. Grime, as you recall, was one of those guys who thought that this stuff was Hebrew. Got laughed out of the academy for it. So Grime seems to see a whole lot more here than Albright does. He sees a lot more here. But let's take a look at what Baran is saying here. There's a high-resolution image here by Moritz. And it looks like it has part of its... Looks like this original image seems to have its original ochre on it, which would make a damage. Let's do a damage. Let's see if we can do a damage assessment on this. Just see if this has the resolution that I can do a damage assessment. You can see a quick damage assessment if I can get this right. And then you guys get to see some D-stretch too. Now, this is a plugin that you can look up online, And you have to get it directly from the creator of the program. And I think he charges something like $50 for a license. It's not an expensive license, but okay, good. Plugins. All right, now we're playing with fire. Okay, I'm gonna throw up the D-stretch image here, and we're gonna be doing a live damage assessment. So I'll take down SAS, add, capture, match. I want the other one. Go. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Take down on here just for the sake of making it less confusing. All right. Here we got the D-stretch. And then what you do is you start adding in the lab colors to see where the ochre begins and where it ends. And already we're starting to see some differences in the ochre here. This is probably not as clear as it could be. There we go. We start to see those orange and red marks. That's where the original ochre is. Let's take. You can already get the impression that on this side here, a lot more of the ochre and the original inscription is preserved. You got some preservation of the ochre there, but less at the bottom. So you're going to see at this point, where would if we were to do the damage assessment, we would be following the green here and saying these are the areas that are more likely to have experienced damage. Okay? So yeah. So that's probably one of the better images. Ochre is going to show up here in the purple and the red. And in the green and the blue is where the ochre has worn away and is probably... And one of the things you could probably... Interestingly enough, one of the things you can see here already is this. And you can... One of the things you can already see here is the inscription in D-stretch is more clear in those areas where the ochre has survived. Like you can see here, an aleph, Knox head aleph right there. You can see a bait, see a bit of a noon there, and so on. You can start seeing these. You can see a kof, and an ion. So, but you get to this half, things start looking pretty fuzzy right around there. So we would have to take into account this here, and we can start seeing here that where the ochre has survived, you're more likely to get much more fidelity in the image. Okay, so the top registers are, especially towards the right-hand side of the inscription, are better. At least this is the boundary of the inscription. You can see that. So right in that boundary there, and it looks like it's sort of cresting towards a lunette. So that is probably the top, near the top of the inscription, because it's cresting towards a lunette. A lunette is the curved portion of a stela, okay, at the top. So there you go. There's an example of a damage assessment done by D-stretch. Okay, again, because they covered a lot of these images with ochre. Now, if we had a higher resolution image with greater bit depth, this is not a very good image, very honest. But it's just enough that I can show you a demonstration of D-stretch here in doing damage assessments. So if we were to take this And if we were to say publish this, we would have to show that areas like this here on the cusp of it are probably damaged in a way that's unrecognizable. Probably that area too, and this area down here would probably also be considered unreadable. But pull this aside for a moment and let's see how this compares to Mr. Baron's appraisal of it. You can actually see it even in Baron's inscription here. Those areas are where we would see the most damage. Okay. On the buckle there, we do see it. Image back here. We do see it on the buckle here where there's a lot of damage. This part of the inscription here, there's a lot of damage. In here, there's a lot of damage. This part here is badly damaged. And even down here, there's a lot of damage. So, as well as a lot of wearing away of here and here as well. So, this image here that was by Moretz definitely shows that there's a lot of damage to this inscription. And we get from him, Baron, a fully readable inscription. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Now that we've shown you the D-stretch damage assessment, let's start pulling up the RTI. And let's see what we can get out from the RTI. And let's go to specular enhancement, like normal. And let's see what we can read. Because we've done our damage assessment. We've got some idea of where the most damage is. So now we kind of gotta look here and see what we can see. Start at the top of the inscription here. The Aleph looks fine. The Nun looks fine. The Tate looks fine. The Zion, probably. Not so sure of the Zion. The Zion is probably there. Sheen's definitely there. There's a great big gouge here where he says there's an ion. I wouldn't trust that. Yeah, that's way too damaged to give you a reliable character. I think that's his final ion on register 1's poppycock. Okay, register 2. Raish is definitely there. Bates there. Nun's there. Koph's there. Bates there. The Nun is there. Mame's there. Bates, maybe. I don't see anything else there. Yeah. Sorry. Not Bates. Sorry. The Bait, the Nun, the Mame, and the Sheen are all there. That's fine. Register 2 is fine. We can definitely give him the that final Sheen. That's no problem. That's there. Register 3. That first ion's kind of dodgy. See if we can move that around anything. Get that clear there. He might be able to read that. I wouldn't say default here. There's something there. But is it an ion? Is it some other character? Hard to say. The Raish, maybe. Might be there. Could be also an Aleph, but we'll give it could be a Raish. Koph, name fine. Lamed, maybe. The Bait, yes. That Sheen in register 3, possibly, but it could also be a Mame. Could be a short Mame. I do not see a Raish there. Sorry, an ion there. I don't see another ion. Yeah, this is really damaged here. I don't see another I in there. I don't see a Lamed. I don't see a Tate. I don't see those last three characters on register 3. Register 4. The first 4 characters. Now, we did notice on the damage assessment that part of the stela is badly damaged. Iron, I don't know. I don't see the Noon. And I don't see a Lamed there. Again, this is a badly damaged piece of text at that point. The first Aleph on register 4 is there. The Hate is there. The Noon is there. That Bait could be there. It could also be a Zion. Again, we're back into a badly damaged piece of text. And the Sheen, maybe. Maybe. Now, these bottom 3 registers are extremely badly damaged. Register 5. I don't see the Tate, but I do see the Sheen. In fact, I think the RTI imaging would say that the Tate is, or sorry, not the Tate, Tav. The Tav is not there. The first Tav in register 5 is probably, I would say, discredited by the RTI imaging. The Sheen is there. I would even say the Iron there's warrant for the Iron. It's too damaged to determine if the second Sheen is there. I am not seeing the Noon. I'll go back to default here and see if I can see it with the. No, you can see the stone here is really badly corroded, really badly eroded. I wouldn't say that there's a Noon there at all. I also do not see the Bait, maybe there, but that's a tough one to call. And that final Lamed I don't see. All right, register 6. Again, I do not see an I in there. Again, this is a badly corroded piece section. Sheen is there. That's an ion after the Sheen is probably there. The Vav, no. I don't see the Vav. At least not enough of anything that I could definitely... I wouldn't stake my reputation on there being a Vav. I wouldn't stake my reputation on there being a final Noon there either. And then on the bottom, the only character I can say there is for certain is that first Sheen. All the rest of that is conjecture. Okay, so we've done our RTI imaging here. Half of these characters aren't there. Half of these characters aren't there. So this would make most of this inscription like really speculative. One of the things I found very odd about his translations is he always starts his translations with the vocative, lo. I don't think there's anything here that really sort of suggests the vocative. I think he's just sort of doing this for grandiose dramatic effect. I cut down the gate of the accursed one. Gone is the value of those for Balot. Give answer to our brothers. For shame, they have committed sin. They have committed sin. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see a lot of this. Those last 2 lines, they have committed sin, are not there. At least the vast majority of those letters are not there. And the shame part is not there either. I mean, I don't get it. Or that's line 4, register 4. Did I see it there? Yeah, it was the Bait that was debatable on that. That could have been a Zion. And yeah, I think he's got some warrant for the Sheena for Bosch. But the rest of that's kind of dodgy. Everything after line 5, after line 4 is so fragmentary as to be unreadable. And I'd say most of, say, a lot of line 1 is kind of iffy. Line 4, Could be other things. The beginning of that line is much more debatable. So, yeah, I think this is, again, another dodgy translation and epigraphy job by Baron. All right, next text. Sinai 351. Ooh. Just focus here on the inscription. Now, interestingly enough, Baron actually, the left view is of Collis, and below are high-res images of stone that at the left by Moran's and right by Wilson Wright. Okay, that image on the right is not a high-res image. It's a RTI image. It is high-res too, but that's an RTI image, like we've been showing. Okay, now that's the RTI image without the animation. So the one by Wilson right there is an RTI image, and you can tell because he's using the specular enhancements. Below left is by Brian Cullis. Cullis is not a good source. Sorry, but the guy's. I like the guy, but he's just not a good source. Many of Cullis's readings are really whacked. So, of all the comparative epigraphers you could find, that's probably not a great one. Okay, so he has on the bottom here a reading by Cullis, and now we're going to get to his reading. And yeah, we've kind of gotten into La La Land here. He's got 3 registers. One that runs right down the middle. One that goes to the side. And then he's got a 3rd register here. This is really strange, this 3rd register. This is an image of the god Ta. But he reads an aleph there, and on the 3rd register, and 2 lamids that snake around the head. So let's bring up the RTI image of this. And let's take a look at what RTI shows us. We will turn on specular enhancement. Go. Let's start with just the basics here. Start with register 1. Okay, is there a Zion there? Probably. It looks like there's a Zion. Tav? Probably. Mame. Is there a mame between the Tav and the bait? I'm not really seeing it. He puts in a green mame there. Yeah, I'm not seeing that. It should be right here. There's not enough room for a mame there. Go back to the default here, see if I can anything. No. See, this is the groove for the bait. The Tav ends right there. That's where the bait begins. There is nothing there. I mean, you see this little squiggle right here, and I think he might be reading that as part of a mame, but there's not enough there to say there's a mame there. In fact, that would be strange to put a mame there. That'd be really strange. And I don't think it's warranted. There's not enough evidence here to show that there's a mame there. I mean, we should be seeing parts of mame elsewhere along here if there's a mame there. And I'm not seeing it. Okay, so back to the specular here. Is there a sheen there? Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm seeing the sheen there. I'm seeing the noon here. I'm seeing the mame there. Seeing the second sheen there. Seeing the noon there. Kof there. The bait here. And Ooh, are those really lamids? That's a tate at the bottom. Is that really a lamid? One of the things about a lamid is a lamid has a open loop. That loop's not open. That's possibly a Vav. Because some early Vavs had closed loops like that. That's looking more to me like a Vav than it is a lamid. Yeah, that looks like a Vav. That doesn't look like a lamid. He's trying to, you can see on his, oops, on here, he's trying to intimate here that that has got a something that curls on the inside. But that loop is clearly closed. And you can see that in the RTI image as you put the light around, that there's no curl on the inside. That loop is clearly closed. So that's gotta be a Vav. Okay. Register 1. See about register 2. Register 2 begins with a MAME. I don't see a problem with that. There looks like there had been something above it. So if this is the Zion here and this is the Tate, I'm wondering if this was probably another letter, maybe an ion. That's possible. Because he's trying to say here that this crossbar on the Tav goes all the way across. But look here, if you'll see in the RTI image, the crossbar ends there. And this is another line. This is another line. So I think what he's done here is he's mistaken two glyphs for one. But the question is, what is that glyph? It is degraded at that point. See if we can get any more. Yeah, you can see here it's part of a different glyph. Right now you can see that already that's part of a different glyph. And it is a glyph. There is something there. What it is hard to say. But there is something else there. Now we go down, we see the MAME. MAME's no problem. Oxhead. I don't know about the Oxhead, man. I'm not seeing the Oxhead. It might be there. Possible. I mean, it could be this here. That's the Oxhead. Maybe. There's the hay. Yeah, this side of the inscription's a lot harder to read. And he says there's 2 baits, and I'm not so much seeing the baits. Seeing the baits. Yeah, I don't see the baits. I see the Lamed. I see the final Tav. See the final Tav. The final Tav. There's the Lamed. I think this part of the stone is really degraded. That's really degraded in this section right here. I think this reading is very suppositional, very speculative at this point. Now, let's take a look at probably the most controversial part of this reading is this up here. Here's the head of Ta. This is supposed to be what he reads as the Aleph. And then supposedly there's 2 lamets that snake around the head of our good buddy Ta here. Back here. There's something up there. Maybe. But that doesn't look like an Aleph to me. It doesn't even follow the contours of his Aleph. Yeah, there's no incision there where his aleph is supposed to be. I'm gonna count this as made up. Make believe. And then there's supposed to be a lamet that goes through here, through this stone matrix here, and around his head. I'm not buying it. I don't see it. There should be inscriptions. There should be an incision there if there is. And it's just strange anyway. So no, I'm not buying his register 3 at all. I think it's pareidolia. Okay. Now his translation here is, this brings shame. Let us depart. Let us curse the magic of amorous Balat. And then L. Well, considering that the aleph is difficult and the hey bait ion, which is this part here, is completely conjectural. I don't think we can count any of this as being, and that MAME in register 1, that MAME, not there. Not there. Yeah, I'm not buying this. You can see here too on his register 3 here as his caption here. He's calling this the image of Ta-Ya. Yeah, he's got no basis for this. This is his assumption number 5 playing in here into his a good scholar would not make an assumption at this point of this kind. This is just playing fast and loose with the truth. Okay, let's move on to the next inscription. Sinai 353. Multiple words of disgust and contempt for Balat. Well, your record's going so far isn't going great, so we'll see what you got here. Sinai B53. From SAS. No readings. All right, so got a full text here. Okay. There does appear to be a carved lunette, so there is a top to the text. That's a good thing. It's always a good thing. And very standard 3-column inscription. Let's do what we do always, which is to validate this. And 3. You have a. All right, we start here with line 1. All right, the line 1 does begin with a Zion. You see the Pei or the Gimel, whichever he chooses in his fancy. There is a what? Okay, I see it. I see the tav there. We're there for a second. I do see the sheen. I do not see 2 MAMEs. I see 1 MAME. Only 1 MAME. He identifies 2 MAMEs here. A MAME written really close to another MAME. Yeah, we can see this from the regular 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. There's a scratch beside the second MAME that I don't think does not appear to be connected to the first. I think he's misread this. I think there's only 1 MAME there. And that's just the default view here. Nothing really fancy here going on. Yeah, it's 1 MAME, not 2. Interestingly enough, you could make a case. You could make a case for a tav there, but you'd have to make this a good reading to make that. But there is a you could make a case for a tav, but he doesn't see that. There is a sheen. I do not see the tav. There could be an aleph there. I do not see a lamed. You could make a case for an aleph, but I do not see a lamed there. If the lamed is there, then the aleph isn't there, because the aleph and his hypothetical lamed are sharing the same bottom line. That's the line that he's seeing the lamed kind of going like this and wrapping around, but the aleph is going down, sharing that line and coming back over, and then the horn's there. So he has to, she needs to choose either the aleph or the lamed, but he can't have both. And I think the case here is stronger for the aleph than the lamed. Yeah, it's much stronger for the aleph than the lamed. Below the tav is supposed to be a meme. I don't see clearly. I don't see a meme clearly. That's probably our clearest portion right there. That could be an lamed underneath that supposed hypothetical meme that I don't see. That could also be a noon. I also see a bait and a lamed there. Lamed's there, easily identifiable. I do not see an ayin here. Supposed to be an ayin there. That is a cough. I don't think that's a yod. Yeah, I doubt that's a yod. But it's not quite the right shape for a yod. It looks more like a cough, pitchfork cough, than it does. I don't see a cough here, though. See that at all. Yeah, there's no cough on the edge here. I think what he's done is he's double read that glyph right there. Could be a yod, could be a cough. It would all depend on how that bar sweeps down. But you could debate that one either way. Okay, so that's register 1. Now let's go to register 2. Register 2 starts with the Gimel pay thing. That's up there. That's their problem. The noon's there. No issue. Zion's there. No issue. Tav maybe there. Regular default here. Tav maybe there. If so, if there's a tav there, I would dispute the noon. I don't think you've got a noon going that direction while you have one going the opposite direction. Sheen is really, if there's a sheen there, it's really hard to see. I'm not seeing the sheen per se. I am seeing the aleph, his claimed aleph. Yeah, his sheen is supposed to be in this crack somewhere, and I don't get it. I don't see it. The aleph I can see. I can make a case for the aleph. Raish, yeah. Yeah, I'm not. That one's that one's really debatable. The hay he's got warrant for, and the final tav he's got warrant for. All right, so that's that one. Go to the third register. Supposed to begin with a Zion. But that's there. Tov. See it there. Bait. Fine. Sheen again. I don't see the sheen. I don't see the sheen again. He loves his sheens. The second sheen I see. First one I don't. That could be a meme. Yeah, could be a meme. The noon, maybe. I'm not seeing the noon. Yeah, the noon's difficult to read if it's there at all. Yeah, I can sort of see, I can see the meme in there. The noon, not really seeing it. Possible. The sheen above it, I don't see it all. That at all. That sheen I see. See the name underneath it. There's the hay. There's the bait. There's the iron. There's the L, the Lamed, and then the final noon. Okay. So there's missing. There's characters he's seeing here that I just can't see. Again, on this side here, that double meme, I don't see that. That Lamed, I don't see that. I don't see that iron. I don't see that cough. And that Yod is debatable. And the middle register, that part here is so badly damaged. That Raish, maybe it's there, maybe it isn't. Who knows? I couldn't see it. On this side, I did not see any evidence at all about that sheen. I'd say it's not even there. I don't see it at all. Okay. So he translates this. A desolate partner, you, have asked to cohabit, you. Denounce these female guests. This is shameful. Let us depart. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. All right, well, that cohabit you, that's so debatable it isn't even funny. That middle register, that denounce these female guests, without that race there, you can't even make that claim. And again, without that sheen after the bait, you're missing here the critical word shameful here. Again, this is a dodgy speculative inscription that we've come to expect from Bahrain. Next one. Ooh, another glamour shot. This time with Sinai 360. Look at that. Aaron Wilson Wright's inscription here, although he modified it. All right, let's talk about this. He's gonna go with Wilson Wright's reading, except he's just gonna add a few things here. So Zion Sheen, this is kind of weird. This bait, this what he's gonna claim that this here, the third glyph, is a palimpsest, a ligature where one letter is written on top of the other. He's going to claim this is a bait with a cross through it. And this is going to be a bait with a top in it. The rest of this is pretty much straight. Looks like it's straightforward. Aaron Wright. So let's bring up the RTI imager and see what it tells us. Now, where Aaron Wilson Wright is a very, very good early Semitic scholar. Very good. He was trained and is professor at the University of Chicago. Very good at what he does. So I don't have a lot of cause to doubt his reading, but let's just go through it anyway, just for giggles. Okay, I can see the Zion at the top, no issue. I can see the sheen at the top. We'll come back to that Bay-Tav thing because there's something kinky going on there. Aleph is there. Tav is there. Zion's there. The Tav's there. The bait's there. Sheen's there. The noon's there. See the MAME, no problem. And the final sheen. Okay. And everything else on this thing is blank. Now let's look at this, because this is interesting. Here's what we got. Now, Bar-Ron's going to add a ligature up to here saying that this is the top of the bait. The bait goes down here, comes around up here. That's the square of the bait. And then there's going to be a tav bisecting this. Okay. I don't see that line go down into the bottom half of that box. Okay? I don't think he's right. I think Aaron Wright is correct here. I think the bait ends here. Now, this, yeah, let's say he's right. Let's say he's right, and that this is a box with a cross in it. If he's right, then this is not a ligature of a bait tav. This is actually a samach. And we do see examples of these in the early alphabetic inscription. So this is not an unknown glyph, if he is correct. The question is he correct? So even if Bar-Ron is correct and this goes up, there's another incision that goes up here, and this goes like, that direction, he's still wrong. So then, that leads us to his reading here, which, without the Shabbat, in that you came back, this is shameful, let us depart. Without that bat, and only being reduced to a bait, Shabbat, this doesn't make any sense. Moreover, it just does not read correctly here. So, very strange. It's a very strange reading and stranger epigraphy. Okay, this is going to wrap it up for part 2. We hope you found that interesting and enjoyable. We hope you join us next week for part 3 of our masterclass on evaluating the Proto-Thesis of Bar-Ron and the early alphabetic inscriptions. We hope you learned something. We'll see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.